This week on Jeb and Flo, I have a very special guest, my wife, the lovely and talented Carolina. We are talking about one of the greatest subjects you could talk about, love.
Yeah, we talk about our own definition of love, the things that restrict us from love, how we fell in love, all of the things about love.
All the ins and outs, the ups, the downs, the what have yous. It's going to be great. Check it out. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
How you doing today?
I'm okay. I'm good. It's, obviously something's going on with Callie. She's a little extra fussy, and I think that always, changes things a little bit.
Do you feel like there's a part of you that's not here because it's there?
Yeah, maybe. Probably a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like that is a good thing to, I don't know if it's like get used to or overcome.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, to give some context, we have just recently started to get some help with childcare for Callie. And so it's kind of a new thing for us to basically just hand her over for extended, and not even that extended, but for us, extended periods of time. And it's a learning process, and I think it's super important for all of us. It's huge, and it's time that we did it. And I know that, there's just a learning curve to it, I think.
All around.
Yeah.
For Callie too, especially.
Yeah.
By the way, we didn't really intro the show. We do a teaser at the beginning anyways. I figured we just get right into it.
Okay.
Because there's so much to talk about. We're recording this a little bit early. But it will come out on the 14th of February, which, is everybody's favorite holiday, obviously. Ploy to sell chocolates and cards and roses. But, why not take a day to celebrate love?
Yeah.
And so that's what this episode is going to be. The love episode, if you will. But really, all the episodes are love episodes if you define love in a certain way. Mm-hmm. So maybe we start there. Carolina, how would you define love?
I think that's interesting, and I think that I agree, that all of these episodes really are related to love, because I think love it's something that inspires you to be the most whole version of yourself, that it moves you to become that version of yourself. I don't know, just I want to say, that it inspires you to be a better person or something, but not necessarily even better, but just whole, I think. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's a great definition. I was thinking about, there's a Martin Luther King Jr. quote that's a bigger quote, but part of it, he says that love is the most powerful force in the universe. And I definitely believe that. I think that most of us really put limitations on what love is, and we think it's a feeling or an emotion. And I like to think about it more as a force. And you can latch onto that force and ride it like a wave, and then you can let go of it and ignore it, which I think helps me fit with the idea that the opposite of love is not hate, but indifference.
Right.
You know? So when it comes to a day like Valentine's Day, I think part of the reason why it's always frustrated me is because I'm like, oh, it's just this ploy made up by the greeting card companies. You know, just like the engagement ring was made up by the De Beers Diamond Company to sell diamonds, you know, which is true. But it also puts this like limitation or this very finite definition on this much bigger thing.
Right.
Which is love. So, and I like what you're saying about how it leads to wholeness. Right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I guess. So it's kind of like, yes, like a force, an energy, something that inspires, a feeling that motivates, it's all of those things that encourages you to become the best version of yourself, or to evolve or grow into, you know, that optimized version of yourself, or to remove the things that really don't matter, to peel away the layer, you know, all of that, all of those things. That's kind of what I think love is for me.
Do you think that you achieved that by loving or being loved?
Wow. Both. Wow. Okay.
Or what needs to happen first?
Well, I think that loving is essential. It's critical to being able to be loved. And I think that loving is essential to the process of becoming your best self. You know, if you're ever looking to get out of your own head, or if you're struggling with some kind of, you know, challenge or whatever it is, going out and helping someone else is always going to help, I think. Or being of service to someone else. And not that, you know, it always has to be that one-way street, but I think it's a really critical part.
Yeah, I agree.
And allowing yourself to be loved, to receive it, which might be even harder.
Yeah, I think well, I agree. It's both are essential, right? And I think I would say that it's better to seek to love than to be loved. Because if my goal is just to be loved, I'm going to compromise who I am. I'm going to try to change my behaviors or change things, you know, maybe even my core values, so that I can get love from somebody. But if I start from a place of having love for someone else and expressing that love for that person, then it honestly doesn't matter whether or not the love comes back. And if it doesn't come back, then I'll probably just I'll still love that person, but maybe not put a lot of my efforts towards maintaining some kind of a productive relationship with that person.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be like, obviously romantic, but it could be professional. It could be a platonic relationship, If you're not getting love back, then cool, but like it feels a lot better when you're around somebody that, returns it.
Yeah.
There's something else I was thinking about while you were talking. Not that I wasn't listening. Oh. So as it refers to communication, I was thinking about, because we were on the drive over here, I was like, oh, this episode's going to be funny because our communication is just like slightly off today.
Yeah.
Which sometimes it is.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny. So we were like driving in the car and I just got this beard kit in the mail. And it's like all wrapped up in the package and everything. And I'm like, oh, maybe you could pull it out so I could, brush my beard while I'm driving.
No, that's not what you said.
That's in my mind what I said.
Okay.
What did I say?
You said, oh, maybe I can use that before today's episode or something along those lines. So the initial statement didn't specify that you wanted to manicure your beard while driving.
Right. In my mind, time-wise, it would only make sense that I would only have time to manicure my beard while we were en route.
Hence my baffled expression when you made this suggestion, because I was like, I don't know how he's going to have time for this. We're already late. So he's going to get there and then also like go into the bathroom and manicure his beard before this episode. I don't know how that's all going to happen. I'm very confused, but I love him and I trust him, and I'm just going to let him see how this unfolds. So meanwhile, you were having a totally different conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was just going to be about brushing the beard. Not a lot of like manicuring, which you can brush your beard anywhere, right? Uh-huh. But yeah, so anyways, I'm like, so could you get that for me? And then you handed it to me and it's like all wrapped in plastic. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to unwrap it myself. And I'm unwrapping it and you're like, do you want some help with that? And I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
And then you pulled out the brush and I'm like brushing it and you're like holding the rest of the box.
Well, I didn't know if you were going to need any other tools.
I know. And I didn't specify. So anyways, all that to show that, we were just off on some different wavelengths, which is funny in that sense, and we laughed about it. Mm-hmm. But I think there's plenty of other times where that our communication, I think I say one thing with this projection in my mind of how that looks. Mm-hmm. It's very different than the projection in your mind.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
For sure.
And I don't know if this relates necessarily to the 5 love languages, which I have been checking out. And I think it's really cool that I think we have our 2 main love languages are the same.
Yeah.
Which is words of affirmation. But again, in my mind, I will think things about you, but not explicitly say them. Mm-hmm. Or I will say something that in my mind shows words of affirmation, but really they don't. And so reading that, I'm listening to the book, but has been really helpful. And I would highly recommend anybody that's challenged with communication running into the same issues, if the roots of arguments and confrontations are the same thing each time, which really comes down to communication, that book was really good. But all that to say, how do you think our communication relates to the way that we love each other, and how we love each other informs the way that we communicate, if that makes sense?
Whew, I don't know. So I think that over the years, I've had to learn to listen in a different way and to communicate in a different way, which, as it turns out, is probably a better way. And for sure, I think early on, there were so many times that I would get so frustrated because I wasn't, I don't know, like getting all of the maybe like praise and attention and flattery, and I wanted to be made to feel like I thought I wanted to be made to feel like I was a princess or something. And what I learned by being with you is that you have so much integrity, and you are very honest with your word. And so the words that you shared were very specific and diligent, and the words that you didn't share, I think, were deliberate. And so when you would say something that normally I might want to brush off, like if you give a compliment and I might say like, oh no, or like, oh, that's not, I'll give like an excuse or start to justify it right away. That's doing you and us a huge disservice, because that compliment or whatever it was that you said really has so much meaning and significance behind it. And I learned, I am still learning, but trying to hear the things that you are saying and understanding that what you do say versus, I don't know, trying to force something else. I don't know if that makes sense. I feel like I'm all over the place right now.
No, that does make sense.
Okay. Maybe it just makes sense to you because you've heard this forever.
No, I think it probably makes sense to everybody.
Okay.
I think it might be funny for people to listen to this with their significant other. I remember one time early on in we were like, probably just, I would say like dating at this time. And we were going to go out to eat. And we were in the car. We were driving to the restaurant, and you were like, "You look really nice." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." There was like this awkward pause, and you're like, "Do I look nice?" And I was like, "Yes, you look beautiful." And this is something that
oh gosh, I feel like this has happened a million times.
Oh yeah, and it happens with a lot of other type situations too, where it's like, I know that I am supposed to respond with the reciprocal of whatever this compliment is
right.
in that time. But I also know that is a little bit on the nose. Like, it just seems like I'm only saying it because it was said to me. Mm-hmm. You know, so it's like when somebody says something nice and I go, oh, thanks. Oh, you too. Then it's like, well, you're just saying that because I said it. Mm-hmm. And so I go through this whole weighing process in my mind when I get a compliment of like, do I make that same compliment back to the person? I mean, I do feel that way, but I don't want it to come off as ingenuine, you know?
Yeah.
And so a lot of times now I just say you too. But
well,
but yeah, so, and it's happened like in a lot of circumstances with a lot of people. But so yeah, that would be like kind of one of those examples of words of affirmation.
Yeah.
Where really the best thing would have been before you said it for me to be like, oh, you look beautiful tonight. You know?
Well, but then it comes down to like, am I only giving you that compliment because I want to hear it in return? And that's been a whole thing for me to have to grow through. Mm-hmm. And no, I do want to give you the compliment. And I don't need to hear it in return in order for what I said to be true or enough. And if I want to hear a compliment, it's okay for me to ask for it or to say like, hey, I'm feeling really insecure tonight, you know, or hey, I don't know about this dress or this new haircut, and to open myself up and to be vulnerable and to ask for help, you know, if that's what if that's what I'm really looking for. Mm-hmm. If I'm actually looking to share a compliment, then I should just share it and have that be enough.
Well, the vulnerability thing is hard because it's like, you know, why not just be like, hey, how do I look? You know?
Yeah.
But then you're opening yourself up knowing that I am
very honest with your word.
Yeah. But I'm also I would say I'm above average in terms of my ability to articulate myself. So I wouldn't be like, you look shitty, you know what I mean? Which you never do, by the way. But, you know, I'd be like, I don't know. I was thinking about when, like, my dad, when you dyed your hair. Oh, my gosh.
Oh.
I think I get a lot of this from my dad. He was like...
He's the most polite person I've ever met.
Yeah.
Ever.
But also his words are very carefully chosen.
Yes.
And you dyed your hair kind of blonde.
So I bleached my hair. It was terrible. Terrible. But I really wanted to go for this look. And we went to go visit JEB's parents. And we walk in the door and his mom is like, oh, you look so great. I love the blonde. This is great. His dad didn't say anything. Maybe like 2 hours later after we'd been there, he says, you know, I really like you as a brunette. And I was like, copy that, Walt. I hear you. Thank you. Understood.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think when you saw me with the blonde, you like had to look the other way.
No,
really. I think because you like didn't want. I mean, we both knew it was bad. I'm pretty sure I was wearing a hat. I walked into the gym and you were like in the middle of doing something and you were like, oh, wow. And then you had to like look the other way and we didn't make eye contact for like hours. And that's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's now that beautiful brunette color.
Yeah, thanks.
So here's a question. Well, so let's really quickly go back to putting limits on this idea of love, because I talked about it, but I want to hear what you have to say about it. Like, how have you put limits on love or seen others do it?
Yeah, I think it comes down to ego a lot when I have not wanted to grow, or that those. So if love is something that inspires us or moves us to evolve or become whole or a better version of ourselves, like that takes growth, and growth I think is often really uncomfortable, and there are times when you just don't want to do it. I don't want to do the work, like learning how to communicate better or learning how to admit to myself that like I need, for you to tell me more often this thing, or for me to admit to myself that like you telling me this thing isn't actually going to give me the thing that I'm really looking for. So anyway, I think if the times that you can, I don't know, I guess resist love or not open yourself up to it, I think oftentimes is related to not being ready or willing to do that work to grow.
I love that. It makes me think about just the whole consistency, more than nothing, street parking philosophy, really, where it's like, I think people, the feeling of falling in love is the best, right? It's such a good feeling.
So much fun.
Yeah, and your body is producing chemicals that get you high. It's stuff that can be somewhat bottled up and put into pills and whatever, and it's addictive, and people actually get addicted to falling in love, or they fall in love with somebody, and then once you're in love, like, you don't keep falling in love. Those chemicals start to go away, and you now have this other bond with this person. And there's a lot of cool directions then that can go, and you can almost revisit the feeling of falling in love, but that takes a lot of work, like what you're saying. And I know that, like, there's been times years into our relationship, which we've been together for over 10 years now.
That's so weird.
I know. It's crazy. So like years deep into our relationship where we've sat somewhere and like had a conversation, and it was a deep conversation, and it was like that same feeling like, oh, I'm falling in love with this girl, that I had on our first couple of dates or whatever. But it took us going and setting aside time to have those conversations, to be vulnerable, to open up, to not worry about, checking the phone or having to be somewhere or anything like that. And there's been plenty of times where we've just gone out to eat and just kind of like, been kind of quiet and or only talked about work and and I think that's cool too. And I'll come back to that because I feel like that's an example of something else. But the whole thing of putting limits on love, I think that number one, it's important for people to recognize that on a chemical level, which is really the messengers that make us feel different things in our bodies and in our brains and in our emotions and stuff, those change. So you have this great feeling of falling in love, then you're in love, and it's a different feeling. And to expect or try to chase that original sensation is a little bit futile, even though if you really do work at it and put in the time and the energy and the consistency, you can get little hits of that feeling.
For sure.
Throughout. And while that's happening, the bond itself grows stronger. So it's like once you get into shape, you don't just stop working out. You have to stay consistent.
Yeah, well, it's like we've talked about, what happens when you get a PR. Then what?
Yeah. Cool. Now what?
Right? Do you just stop working out?
Yeah.
No. And I think that and I've learned this with fitness as well, is that, yes, while that initial falling in love stage is so fun and special and something that I will cherish forever, the other stages, for example, the one that I think we are currently in, is something to savor. And while the feeling might be different, it doesn't mean that it's better or worse. And you can find what is special about this part. And like with fitness, at first it was like, oh, just crushing PRs and everything is new and exciting. And then what happens? What happens when you get injured? What happens when you have like a major change in your life or whatever it is? Mm-hmm. What happens to your relationship with fitness? Does it mean that it's not as exciting or beneficial? No. Maybe it becomes even more essential at this other phase, in this other stage of life that is maybe more sustainable or long-term or, I don't know.
It gets deeper.
Yeah.
Because it has to.
Yeah. Or it just goes away.
Yeah. And then you die.
Yikes.
When did you know? I've told the story on here a couple of times, right? We went out on a date and you took me to some different cool places like through Malibu and whatnot. And we were at the beach and we were wading through the water in this little rock cave. And I looked at you and I realized at that moment, like, oh, I'm in trouble. I'm in love with this girl. Mm-hmm. But I never have asked you when it was for you, or if it was a sudden realization that you loved me or a slow burn.
Yeah, and I'm glad you have never asked me.
Maybe I knew deep down I didn't need to ask.
I don't have like a really good answer for you. And I've thought about that. And I think I've talked about it before, how like the first time that I remember seeing you, having this like knowing of like that guy, him. And I still feel it sometimes where it's like you are my childhood crush, my my dream person. And then I saw you and I was like, that one. And maybe there was like some lust involved in that whole experience. But also I think I'd like to believe that there was a part of me that kind of knew that this person was going to be really, really good for me. Mm. So maybe there was that initial part that I think it's important. And then there was a slow burn for sure, because you were someone very different from anyone else I'd ever known. We were dating and going out and just everything about you was different. You did not play into the drama. You did not feed me all of the BS I think that I may have been used to. You did not what did you say? You would tell me, I'm not going to I'm not going to co-sign your shit, or I'm not going to co-sign
Yeah.
this, when I was really craving that, the drama, I think. And you also just had this sense about you that seemed really at peace, and you were calm, and that was very confusing to me. And you were doing all of that sober. And I was like, who is this guy? You know, I was still drinking at the time, and I remember just being like, how is this guy so chill all the time and so genuine and down to earth? And it was just, this slow burn. And little did I know that I was really learning a lot from you and falling in love with you.
Mm. That's cool. It's funny to hear you say that, and I think probably funny for a lot of the people watching or listening to hear you say that you were confused by how calm and chill and relaxed
So chill.
I was, and I wouldn't co-sign onto your BS and the drama, because I'm sure everyone looks at you the same way that you're talking about me.
Oh, that's
so
funny.
Calm, so relaxed, down to earth, measured. Yeah. And it's, I think, important for anyone listening to know, like I used to be a complete psycho, like really bad.
I really enjoy when you tell me those stories because it makes me feel like, okay, there's hope for me, and also like you're this like real person, and
Yeah. I mean, we were both wild.
a mess.
I got to see some of your wildness, but I think you were pretty good at hiding a lot of it. Fortunately, nobody you don't know, and nobody that I work with, very, very few people that I still am in contact with know what I used to be like.
Yeah.
And when they hear stories, it's almost unbelievable, you know?
It is.
Which is pretty cool. And then I have a couple of friends that have known me through all of it, and they're still my friends. And it's pretty cool that, you know,
Yeah.
they still talk to me.
Which is why I think it's so cool that you still talk to me.
Nice. Yeah, well, I think that probably there was, I remember seeing you for the first time. Well, really, I've told you about how I saw you for the first time in the office. But then, and I didn't really make this connection that you were the same person, I guess. But then I saw you on the floor of the restaurant, and you were like polishing glasses or something. And like, you looked back at me and you smiled. You gave your little signature smile. And I was like, huh. And for some reason, there was this sense, there was this feeling like deeper than just like, oh, that girl's hot. But it was like, I think that might be like somebody that, you know, it's like this vision, this long-term vision that just like popped in and out of my head really quick.
Yeah, this person is significant in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even though I didn't really like let that, as we started to get to know each other and hang out, compromise. Well, I made some compromises, but didn't compromise deep down, you know, like I'm not going to play into this drama or whatever.
Yeah.
But it still somehow managed to work out. And I think it's because we probably both knew on some level that we needed to stay in it, see where this goes.
Yeah, and I think that we were both, even though at the time we were like, oh yeah, I'm totally not looking for a serious relationship. I think more so than we were looking for a serious relationship, we were looking to become better versions of ourselves. And I think that there was some part of each of us that recognized that we could do that together and with each other, and that if I open myself up, things could be better.
Yeah, I remember you wrote me a letter when you were in Costa Rica, and you were talking about how you wanted to live more honestly. And I think that when you got back, we got very honest. I mean, I knew, and let's be honest right now, that through sobriety, that's the first thing that you learn, right?
Yeah.
Is the how is honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. So if the honesty about what's going on is not there, really not much else can follow after that. And so I think that the ability to be honest with ourselves and with each other in our relationship has, I think, allowed our relationship to be what it is.
Yeah.
Which is not perfect, but it's something that I don't think we have a lot of like problems that, maybe are pretty common in a lot of other relationships. And I think that honesty is where that starts.
Yes.
Where do you think, or I should say, why do you think, and I've just kind of touched on it a little bit, but not just on social media. On social media, we'll post something together, like dancing or whatever, and people will comment like couple goals. Or when we've done retreats in the past, or we ran the gym together, or when we were teaching yoga together. And maybe it's because we just do everything together. But a lot of people have made comments like that over the years. Where do you think that comes from?
I mean, honestly, I think it comes from they only see our highlight reel. They haven't seen the countless really uncomfortable conversations that we have had to have, like really uncomfortable, with each other and with ourselves. They haven't seen the like really, really deep work that we have had to do on our own as individuals, that we've had to allow each other to do, that we've had to remind each other to do. I mean, even as recently as sometime in the past few months, you called me out on my mental health and like where I have been and how I'm not well. And as uncomfortable as that conversation was, and as painful as it was in the moment, it opened my eyes to the reality of like, hey, I'm not well. I need to ask for help. This whole postpartum experience, there's like some trauma, some depression, some anxiety, some things that I'm not doing a good job of managing, and I need help. And so anyway, yeah, but we don't show that conversation on our Instagram stories. We haven't shown all of that. Or like you said, even the years of, you called it wild, but I mean, wild is a really nice way to put it. But wild behavior that we had that led me to a point of complete desperation to need to change my life and to need to change my behavior and my habits and my way of thinking. People don't see that, and they haven't seen that. So maybe that's part of it.
Yeah.
If they had seen that, maybe they'd be like, dang, that looks like a lot of work. Or like, shoot, I don't want to have to get to that low in order to get to that high.
By the way, if you can hear any stuff in the background, Julian's doing a live and he likes to shout into the screen. So even though he's in the other room, you might be able to hear him right now. But yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think that people do just see the highlight reel. And it's not like we're trying to hide anything. But like, I don't think that anyone really needs or wants to see the really nitty gritty, or maybe I just don't want to show that. So maybe I am intentionally just showing the highlight reel, but we're not trying to project it out.
Yeah.
We're just doing what we do. But yeah, I think that's a really good point, that it is deep work. And the work doesn't just one day stop. You know, you don't just stop eating right. You don't just stop working out one day and remain fit for the rest of your life. You don't just stop watering vegetables and they continue to grow and flourish. Like, it's like a garden and it needs to be tended to. Mm-hmm. And it's not comfortable. And had we not, I think, early on been able to be honest and in some ways not explicitly, but like create an environment where you feel like you have permission to just say the ugly stuff that needs to be said or be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. I've been in other relationships where I tried to say like certain things like, hey, I need this from you. And they just like laughed at me. And I'm like, well, dang, that doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
You know? And then so what from there? Well, I don't want to get laughed at, so I'm not going to communicate what my needs are from there, you know?
Yeah.
So I think...
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think to be clear, like to say the ugly things, it's really important that we mention, like we're not talking about using ugly or hurtful words. Like
Right.
That has never been an option. It's not ever been on the table. I think maybe at some point I probably tried to pull that card early on, and we put a stop to that real soon because it's just not okay, and it's not a part of productive communication for anyone, but definitely not for like a marriage. So yeah, we talk about the ugly things that we are feeling or going through or whatever, but it's not in a mean or cruel way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean like the stuff that makes us feel gross inside, you know,
Right.
the stuff
Okay,
that
yeah.
doesn't, just kind of gives you like an ugly feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think if people were to see us, quote unquote, fight, it would be really weird because I'll literally say like, I'm feeling very angry right now. And I'll say it like that.
Yeah.
And maybe sometimes the words get a little more forceful.
Rarely. Oh my gosh.
Very rarely. And like, there's never like yelling or,
No.
you know, throwing things or anything like that.
Sometimes I wish there was. No, I'm kidding.
It
I
feels
don't.
like that, but you know, that doesn't get anywhere.
No.
And if you think about, well, what's the outcome that we want from this, then probably listening and staying calm is the best way to get there.
Yeah, I think it's like, oh, I can express just how frustrated I am if I throw this right now or if I raise my voice. But there are also other ways to express just how frustrated you are by, you know, for example, using different words or, you know, whatever. But yeah.
Yeah. And I think all of that comes back to the definition of love. Because even when I'm angry at you, if I'm having a confrontation or we're talking it out, even though we're saying things that aren't necessarily like feel good type language, we're still expressing love.
Yes.
You know, we're still trying to be in it, be riding that wave and being in touch with that all-powerful force.
Yeah, for sure.
Because otherwise it would just be like, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. When there's something that you're angry about or that I'm angry about, as uncomfortable as it is, I know that our relationship, or like I as an individual, will be better for addressing it or seeing it or talking through it. There's something to learn from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my default really is to eject myself, to escape. Mm-hmm. There's something nasty that's going to make me feel like, I don't want to get into this. Like, okay, get out of here. Just escape, run away. That's where I default to. And I think what's really been helpful for me, honestly, sometimes even when you're saying stuff that makes me really angry or we're working things out, while I'm looking at you, try to remind myself in my head, like, I love you. And it helps me stay in it. It helps me listen. It helps me not immediately just try to defend or explain myself when it's my turn to talk. Because just making you understand what I'm saying doesn't ever solve the problem.
Yeah. That's really cool. I like that.
It's been very helpful.
Cool.
I feel like we could keep talking about this. We're getting into some good stuff. We're running a little bit long here.
Okay.
So let's do one more thing. But I touched on it. Like, we do everything together, which is not normal. I mean, what is normal? But like, for a lot of couples, they have one person either goes off to their job, the other goes to their job, or one person stays home and the other one goes to their job. And they have this whole life outside of the house or outside of the exclusive of the spouse.
Yeah.
And we don't have that.
We never have.
We have always worked together.
Yep.
Spent every day together. We have hobbies, like we got into Taekwondo together, got black belts together.
Yep. CrossFit, yoga. And sometimes, like, I got into CrossFit and then you got into it and then you were way into yoga and then I eventually got into that. But that's enough to make some couples really lose their minds spending that much time together. Mm-hmm. I can't really imagine it the other way. I can't either.
So I don't know if there's much to unpack there or talk about, but
I mean, I've thought about it, and I think honestly, like, in all honesty, for me, it probably had a little to do with me being kind of codependent in the beginning. And I'm not really sure what else there is to say about that. But I think if I am really, really honest, that probably played a little bit of a role in it. But then I think, like, you're my best friend. And you're the person that I have the most fun with in the whole world. And I love doing stuff together. There's no one else I would rather do stuff with. I mean, besides Callie. But, so it's like, okay, maybe at first there was a little bit of insecurity or selfishness or whatever it is there. But now it's like just a genuine way for how I enjoy my life. And I think we also have learned to respect needing our own space and individuality within what we do. So you do street parking your own way, you use the program in your own way that's different from how I do. Or yoga, the way we love yoga is different. While we could probably spend every moment together enjoying everything together or whatever, I know that it's important for you to go and have time to do something by yourself, and you know that for me. So we still try to respect that, and even if we could do everything, like every moment together, we still make sure that we get some of our own time.
Yeah. Every single moment.
Every moment.
Crazy. But yeah, I agree. Most things that I want to go experience, sort of like cool things, I would want you to experience them with me so that then we can talk about the experience.
Yeah.
And even if it's like we've gone to, I don't know if it was concerts or shows or something where we've just like walked in and like looked at it and then looked at each other and just been like, totally. And then just left. Like we both just, yeah, the opera. Yeah, opera's not our jam apparently.
Or, you know, I love when you teach me something. So even if it, so you, JEB, as I'm sure you guys all know, loves to learn and is constantly like reading and trying out these new things and like the nasal breathing this and the ice bath that, all of that kind of stuff. And so he'll go and learn about something and then he wants to tell me about it. And while I might not like, I'm not going to tape my mouth shut to do a workout, I really enjoy hearing what you have to teach me or share with me, or when you get really excited about something. So if you're going to show me this new technique or this new theory or whatever it is, like I'm going to give it a shot because I just enjoy that it excites you so much. I guess that's how I started watching UFC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, now
You'd get so like pumped about it. And now, yeah, now I kind of like it.
Nice. All right, well, let's wrap it up. But I feel like this is a good opportunity to plug something that is sort of on the same wavelength as this. So instead of an action item for this week, I just wanted to tell people that we are going to be doing a focus group. Street parking focus group,
So
something
excited.
new that's happening in 2021, and I'm actually going to tell you more about that on the next episode, generally what they are, but we are going to do a mindfulness in motion focus group that is 4 weeks long. What are we going to do in that 4 weeks?
We're going to do some live maintenance, some new maintenance, some posture workshops, some breathing workshops, and kind of talk about how to apply mindfulness, which sometimes we think needs to be this practice of like meditation or stillness or whatever, but really just like how mindfulness can apply to our fitness, to, you know, your daily workouts, to your parenting, to your relationships, to anything and everything. And hopefully trying to make it like what we do with street parking and just like kind of simple, or a little bit more simple, sustainable, accessible.
Yeah, I think the goal of this 4 weeks really is to help improve awareness. Awareness of the way that you think, the way that you feel, and the way that you move. And those three things are all connected to one another. And I agree, the term mindfulness has got this very ethereal type attachment to it, but the word was actually coined by a psychology professor. It's rooted in psychology, and it's just a state of being or a way of thinking about how you are. And so there's so many applications to it, and in those 4 weeks, people can participate as much or as little as they want, but I think we both have talked about it, and we're so pumped to be able to do this. And it's going to be a lot of, even if you show up for like, check out 1 or 2 things a week that we're putting up, it will get you thinking about the way that you move, the relationship that you have with your body, with your mind, with your heart, with your fitness, with your health, all of that. It'll just kind of get you to think about that stuff in a new way. And if we can accomplish that, then I think that's going to be huge.
Yeah.
So that's it. Let's call it there. Baby, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I love you so much.
I love you too.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
I love you too. See you next time.